everyone, so for today's video, I'm gonna share to you what's culture all about, the meaning of culture, the characteristic of culture, and the functions of culture. So let's go to the topic. So the costumes, traditions, values, norms, and also the ideas and symbols are the govern human behavior pattern. The members of society not only endorse them, but also mold their behavior accordingly. So they are the members of the society because of the traditions and customs which are common and which are passed down from generation to generation through the process of socialization. And also, cultural ideas emerge from shared social life. Sometimes an individual is described as a highly cultured person. Means that the person in question has certain features such as his speech and manner, as you can see there's a picture below, and also the taste for literature, music or painting, which distinguish him from others. So culture in this sense refers to certain personal characteristics of an individual. However, this is not the sense in which the word culture is used and understood in social sciences. Sometimes, culture is used in popular discourse to refer to a celebration or an evening of entertainment, as when one speaks of a cultural show. So in this sense, culture is identified with aesthetics or the fine arts. As you can see in the pictures below, such as dance, music, or drama, this is also different from the technical meaning of the word culture. So culture is used in a special sense in anthropology and sociology. As you can see in the pictures below, there are behaviors, beliefs, feelings, and thoughts. So the pictures, it refers to the sum of the human being's life ways. So it connotes everything that is acquired by them as social beings. So culture has been defined in a number of ways. There is no consensus among sociologists and anthropologists regarding the definition of culture. So one of the most comprehensive definitions of the term culture was provided by the British anthropologist Edward Tyler. So he defined culture as that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. So there are some writers who add to these definitions some of the important other capabilities and habits, such as language and the techniques for making and using tools. Culture consists of all learned, normative behavior patterns that is all shared ways or patterns of thinking and feeling as well as doing. For instance, the British anthropologist Malinowski included inherited artifacts, implements, and consumer goods, and social structure within his definition of culture. So some of the other important definitions of cultures are as follows. So culture is the expression of our nature, in our moods of living, in our thinking, intercourse in our literature, in religion, in recreation, and enjoyment, says MacVer. So here are some meaning of culture. It's the sum total of human achievements, materials as well as non-materials capable of transmission sociologically. So when we say non-materials, it includes traffic laws, words, and dress codes. Unlike material culture, the non-material culture is intangible. And when we say material culture, this includes the money, tools, weapons, machines, the art, and the buildings. So next, culture is a system of learned behavior shared by and transmitted among the members of the group. The last one, we have it is a collective heritage learned by individuals and passed from one generation to another. So now let's go to the characteristics of culture. So first, we have the learned behavior. So not all behavior is learned, but most of it is learned. Like what you see in the video and pictures below, like combing swan hair, telling jokes, and going to movie. All constitute behaviors which had to be learned. So some behavior is obvious. People can be seen going to football games, eating with forks, or driving automobiles. That behavior is called overt behavior. So other behavior is less visible. Such activities as planning tomorrow's work, feeling hatred for an enemy are behaviors too. This sort of behavior, which is not openly visible to other people, is called covert behavior. So the second one, we have the culture is abstract. So culture exists in the minds or habits of the members of society. It is the shared ways of doing and thinking. There are degrees of visibility of cultural behavior, ranging from the regularized activities of persons to their internal reasons for so doing. In other words, we cannot see culture as such, we can only see human behavior. This behavior occurs in regular, pattern fashion, and it is called culture. So the third one, we have culture is a pattern of learned behavior. So the definition of culture indicated that the learned behavior of people is pattern. Each person's behavior often depends upon some particular behavior of someone else. The point is that, as a general rule, behaviors are somewhat integrated or organized with related behaviors of other persons. So the fourth one, we have the culture is the products of behavior. So, cultural learnings are the products of behavior. As the person behaves, there occur changes in him. He acquires the ability to swim, to feel hatred towards someone, or to sympathize with someone. So they have grown out of his previous behaviors. So in both ways, then, human behavior is the result of behavior. The experience of other people are impressed on one as he grows up, and also many of his traits and abilities have grown out of his own past behaviors. The fifth one, we have the culture, includes attitudes, values, and knowledge. So there is widespread error in the thinking of many people who tend to regard the ideas, attitudes, and notions which they have as their own. It is easy to overestimate the uniqueness of one's own attitude and ideas. When there is agreement with other people, it is largely unnoticed. But when there is a disagreement or difference, one is usually conscious of it. So, your differences, however, may also be cultural. For example, suppose you are a Catholic and the other person a Protestant. The sixth one is culture also includes material objects. Man's behavior results in creating objects. Men were behaving when they made these things. To make these objects required numerous and various skills which human beings gradually built up through the ages. So man has invented something else and so on. So man does not really make steel or a battleship. All these things first existed in a state nature. So the seventh one, we have culture is shared by the members of society. So the patterns of learned behavior and the results of behavior are possessed not by one or a few persons, but usually by a large proportion. So persons may share some part of a culture unequally. For examples, as Americans do the Christian religion, to some persons, Christianity is the all-important, predominating idea in life. To others, it is less preoccupying or important, and to still others, it is of marginal significance only. So sometimes, the people share different aspects of culture. For example, among the Christians, there are Catholic and Protestant, liberal or conservation. The point to our discussion is not that culture or any part of it is shared identically, but that is shared by the members of society to a sufficient extent. The eighth one, we have culture is superorganic. So culture is sometimes called superorganic. It implies that culture is somehow superior to nature. So the word superorganic is useful when it implies that what may be quiet, a different phenomenon from a cultural point of view. The next one, we have culture is pervasive. Culture is pervasive because it touches every aspect of life. So the pervasiveness of culture is manifest in two ways. First, is culture provides an unquestioned context within which individual action and response take place. Not only emotional action, but relational actions are governed by cultural norms. The second one, we have culture pervades social activities and institutions. So the next one is culture is a way of life. Culture means simply the way of life of a people or their design for living. So this consists of beliefs, values, practices that a group of people has in common. For example, its religious, language, lifestyle, and education. So we have here the explicit. When we say explicit culture, it is refers to similarities in word and action which can be directly observed. For example is, the adolescent cultural behavior can be generalized from regularities in dress, mannerism, and conversation. Implicit culture, it exists in abstract forms which are not quite obvious. So the 11th one is culture is a human product. So culture is not a force, operating by itself and independent of the human actors. And also, culture is a creation of society in interaction. Therefore, culture does not do anything on its own. It does not cause the individual to act in a particular way, nor does it make the normal individual into a maladjusted one. In short, culture is a human product. It is not independently endowed with life. The 12th one is culture is idealistic. So culture embodies the ideas and norms of a group. It is sum total of the ideal patterns and norms of behavior of a group. And also, culture consists of the intellectual, artistic, and social ideals and institutions which the member of the society profess and to which they strive to confirm. The next one we have culture is transmitted among members of society. The cultural ways are learned by persons from persons. Many of them are handed down by one's elders, by parents, teachers, and others. So some of the transmissions of culture is among contemporaries. For example, the style of dress and the political views. One does not acquire a behavior pattern spontaneously. He learns it. That means that someone teaches him and he learns. Much of the learning process, both for the teacher and the learner, is quite unconscious, unintentional, or accidental. The next one we have culture is continually changing. So there is one fundamental, unescapable attribute of culture, the fact of unending change. So some societies at some times change slowly, and hence, in comparison to other societies, seem not to be changing at all. But they are changing even though not obviously so. So the next one we have culture is variable. So culture varies from society to society and group to group. So culture is what differentiates one group or society from the next. Different societies have different culture. However, it is important not to confuse the idea of culture with society. So a culture represents the beliefs and practices of a group, while society represents the people who share those beliefs and practices. Next, we have culture is an integrated system. So culture possesses an order and system. So its various parts are integrated with each other, and any new element which is introduced is also integrated. So the last one, characteristics of culture, is the language is the chief vehicle of culture. Man lives not only in the present, but also in the past and future. So he able to do this because he possesses language which transmit to him what was learned in the past, and enable him to transmit the accumulated wisdom to the next generation. Although culture is transmitted in a variety of ways, language is one of the most important vehicles for perpetuating cultural patterns. So to conclude, culture is everything which is socially learned and shared by the members of a society. It is a culture that, in the wide focus of the world, distinguishes individual from individual and group from group and society. So social scientists have discussed various functions of culture. First, we have the culture-defined situation. So each culture has many subtitle cues, which define each situation. It reveals whether one should prepare to fight, run, laugh, or make love. So for example, suppose someone approaches you with right hand outstretched at waist level. So what does this mean? So it means he wishes to shake hands in friendly greeting, and that's perfectly obvious. So the second one, we have culture defines attitudes, values, and goals. So each person learns in his culture what is good, true, and beautiful. So the attitude, they are tendencies to feel and act in certain ways. While values, they are measures of goodness or desirability. For example, we value private property, or the representative, that government, and many other things and experience. And the goals, they are those attainments which are values defined as worthy. For example, winning the race, gaining the affections of a particular girl, or become president of the firm. So by approving certain goals and ridiculing others, the culture channels individual ambitions. In these ways, culture determines the goals of life. So the third one, we have culture defines myth, legends, and the supernatural. So myth and legends are an important part of every culture. They may inspire, reinforce, effort and sacrifice, and bring comfort in bereavement. Whether they are true is sociologically unimportant. So we can't understand the behavior of any group without knowing something of the myth, legends, and the supernatural beliefs they hold. And also, myths and legends are powerful forces in a group's behavior. And the last one, we have culture provides behavior patterns. So the individual need not go through painful trial and error learning to know what foods can be eaten without poisoning himself, or how to live among people without fear. He finds a ready-made set of patterns awaiting him which he needs only to learn and follow. So the individual does not have to wonder how one secures a mate. He knows the procedure defined by his culture. So if a society without rules or norms to define right and wrong behavior would be very much like a heavily traveled street without traffic signs or any understood rules for meeting and passing vehicles. So in this situation, chaos would be the result in either case. So now I will talk about the culture and society. So the relationship between society, culture, and personality is stressed by Ralph Linton, where a society is an organized group of individuals, a culture is an organized group of learned responses, and the individual is a living organism capable of independent thought, feeling, and action, but with his independence limited and all his resources profoundly modified by contact with the society and culture in which he develops. So a society cannot exist apart from culture. A society is always made of persons and their groupings. People carry and transmit culture, but they are not culture. No culture can exist except as it is embodied in a society of man. No society can operate without cultural directives. It is like a matter and energy, like mind and body. They are interdependent and interacting, yet express different aspects of the human situation. So one must always keep in mind that the interdependence and the reciprocal relationship between culture and society, each is distinguishable concept in which the patterning and organization of the whole is more important than any of the component parts. And that's culture all about, the meaning of the culture, the characteristics of culture, and its functions. Hope you learned something from this video. Thank you for watching. Bye!